Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to LCK 2019 Summer Playoffs. The Kahn picks up the MVP. Kiin might have been eating the oranges, but Kahn gets to eat the apples after that one.
Yeah, the early game was a little bit of weather in the storm, but it's Vladimir. We know how it goes, and the GP matchup is an explored one. Remember, guys, the MVP is going to be a separate one. We do have a playoffs MVP. Regular season MVP was already Canyon from Down One Gaming, who we'll be seeing in our LCK semifinal. There is a prize and prize money for winning the playoffs MVP, and then we close out MVPs with, of course, the LCK final, which is not that far away, Atlas.
Yeah.
We play today, Wednesday. We have our first best of 5 Friday, so every 2 days until Sunday, which is the semifinal, and then August 31st will be LCK Grand Final. Lot to look forward to, but just for today, nice controlled performance from SKT in game number 1. Now we have dynamic side selection in playoffs. In game number 1, SKT chose red side. Game number 2, the only of the 3 games that Afreeca has side selection, they will choose red side as well.
Yep, Talia going to be the first ban here, so SKT no interest in first picking that champion. And there is the Xayah ban once again coming out from the Afreeca Freecs. We'll see whether this is going to adjust how the bans happen, and already we can see a Gragas being taken off the board. Afreeca not really changing up too much though. The Aatrox and the Xayah were both banned away in game number 1, and now it's going to be a little bit more difficult to pick something like the Vladimir, so may not necessarily need to look at it, as the Yuumi once again going to be banned.
What I really want to see from Afreeca is holding Ucal's pick for last pick, and I want to know what FLICKR blind picks on blue side, because if you think about previous metas, Nico, Azir, Corki, those are kind of the ones he would consider blind picking. I think Syndra might evolve to be a very common blue side blind pick. Tom Kench, gonna be banned, gonna be picked up first here. You might say, okay, he's been nerfed for the millionth time. Why? In game number 1, Tom Varus allowed them to find a way to get priority over bot lane, and that meant that Ucal's assassin pick couldn't actually get rolling. So because of that, it seems like they're still happy to first pick Tom. So Afreeca's gonna take a very early rise, and this could potentially be mid or top lane. Kiin probably the more famous of the Rise players.
Yeah, Sejuani was banned in game number 1 on the blue side by Afreeca Freecs. This time they are going to pick it up. Of course, she has taken a couple of nerfs, namely to her passive and her Q, but still going to be picked up here. And the Sylas being nerfed so heavily in the jungle is going to stop that one from being the counterpick, and Clid says, well, I'm not even interested in counterpicking that. I'm interested in playing the same composition that we had in game 1.
And now, if you think of kind of junglers that have a pretty similar identity in Sejuani versus Skarner, I think a lot of people's reviewers' tilt would be to the Skarner side rather than the Sejuani side. Sejuani has always been a pretty good matchup into Skarner, because when it comes to a smite fight, you just ult the Skarner and then pick up the smite. You can do that from a lot further range. SKT gonna be picking up Ezreal, Tom, this time. Going to a Teddy favorite. Not so worried about the Varus. And here is Afreeca, and this has been a recent trend, is that the Thresh priority in Korea in week 10 of the regular season was way, way higher. Senan played it and looked pretty convincing on the pick. And when you think of aiming, he plays Draven, he plays Kalista, he plays a lot of those creative bot lane picks. Afreeca really need to find a way to get priority. It seems like they're going to be following on what we said, given that we think Kiin's on the rise, and they will probably be last picking Ucal's champion.
But Afreeca can flex the rise between both mid and top, so now SKT with a lot of bans that they need to throw out. And
Nico
I think
is probably going to be the ban here if you want to play a mid lane counter pick game, but they're going to ban Jace instead. So they are covering their bases here, Afreeca Freecs.
Yep, banning Kahn's Jace, of course, has historically been a more important ban. Recently, it's been other players that have moved up as far as power level of Jace play.
Power level of melee solo laners going to be higher with the Sejuani already locked in, so that's why we see the Aurelia ban coming through from SKT. They don't want one of those natural melee lanes to play through. As of the aiming champions, they choose to ban away.
And he looks perplexed about it as well, but we'll see what aiming is going to lock away here. Likely, it's going to be an 80 carry and hold on to that Rise flex for as long as possible.
Varus or Draven would be the ones you would consider here. Kai'Sa has some synergy, but you
don't... there we go.
You don't really want to go anything other than Kai'Sa Nor, and they could have gone that way. So when we saw the Thresh, the Draven priority went up. They need priority in the 2v2.
This'll do it, Papa Smith.
Oh, yeah.
This'll do it.
Can't get much stronger than Draven Kench in this particular, so Draven Thresh against Ezreal Kench. And we talked about how if Nico was left open, it would be lapped up. There it is.
Yep, Nico sort of dropped off in popularity last week and did take a couple of nerfs, but Faker's Nico is a different beast. Still, 100% win rate on this champion, as the Cannon was banned in game number 1, and Kahn is thinking about it here in game number 2.
Last pick Yasuo, a very real possibility for Afreeca.
That is spicy.
Could also consider rolling back to Kiana here if he's still confident on the pick. I wouldn't hate it. So let's wait and see what Afreeca want to run. Remember, they have Rise, so they already have a huge magic damage here. We saw Nuguri's casual 1v4.
Yep.
In the last series of the regular season, we're thinking AD melee. It is Yasuo.
Oh man, Yasuo Draven. Talk about a last round of picks here for the Afreeca Freecs. This is going to be a game. Afreeca very good at going the distance against SKT in any series. There's only been a couple of 2-0s over the last 2 years between these two squads, regardless of who the nameplates say are on the team. So this certainly could be Afreeca evening out this best of 3.
But SKT controlled Afreeca well in game number 1, and while I don't think their draft 1-to-1 kind of counters it like it did in game number 1, if I'm able to call Draven into Yasuo, SKT would also have been saying similar things. So Nico here is the big unexplored champion. Champion hasn't really been changed since the top lane nerf a couple of patches ago, and can still be that Faker champion and of anyone to use the Nico passive, which to me separates the good from the great Yasuo players. There's a Riot meme that people want to talk about. Faker has been the best at it. He is career undefeated on this Nico. So let's watch it and learn.
Yeah, let's see whether he can have a repeat performance. I think Clid being on the Skarner is another huge one. His Impales was so good in game number 1. Can he be the difference maker here in game number 2 against a very different composition from the Afreeca Freecs? The thing that stands out to me is bot side priority, this time theoretically being well and truly in the hands of Afreeca Freecs.
If it's not, it's going to have to be some explaining to do, Atlas. It's Draven Thresh.
Well, let's see whether they can put their money where their mouth is as we get into game 2. Going skinless on the Draven as we move out onto the Rift for game number 2. This is the big one. This is the time where Afreeca can theoretically turn their fortunes around after a game 1 that had some fumbles, to say the least, throughout the mid to late game.
Isn't that Gladiator Draven?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I think it's definitely Gladiator Draven. On that side,
I've just seen too much of the Cyborg Draven.
Ah, yes.
So maybe I think that every other skin, apart from the one where he's the announcer Draven, then I just assume that it's just the normal skin.
Well, he's not wearing a lot of clothes.
That's true.
It is very warm in Korea, so I think he's keeping
now I'm
the
trying to
weather
work
report
out
up.
what the original Draven skin looks like. It's just not often that anyone goes vanilla Draven. I'm just remembering from TFT.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure that's the Draven that I see in TFT.
I mean, we have Jace going from regular skin to the full metal Jace in TFT, so I don't think learning from TFT is the right way to go.
Oh, man.
Dredd is going to start off on Raptors here. He's got a leash from good old Yasuo. This is the world's first Yasuo to give a leash, I believe.
No, well, like, actually, Yasuos love doing this because they like walking the lane with their tornado.
I know.
But you're talking about Yasuo's just being keen on anime and not helping their friends. Hey, that's what you're
all I know is when I'm playing jungle with a mid lane Yasuo,
by the
time I finish my blue buff, he's given first blood.
Or he's taken your blue buff.
Well,
I need this.
Thankfully, a little bit more tricky for him to do overall.
That's true. That's true.
Speaking of the Yasuo, going to be a range versus melee matchup, so early. Going to be some harassment here. Once again, combat summoners on both. Exhaust from Faker, Exhaust from Ucal. So it could be a very active trading mid lane matchup.
Yep, Ucal trying to play this one as effectively as possible. He has taken the fleet footwork just for some extra sustain in this lane. But now that he's hit level 2, that wind wall is going to start giving him some value. And block a few of the Nico spells that you really want to be worried about, namely the snare.
Another kind of jungle matchup where theoretically Dread can make things happen, but can very often fall into level 6 farm fest between a Sejuani and a Skarner. This is a matchup. To confirm, it is 80 cannon, or on-hit cannon coming through from Kahn. It isn't going to be AP cannon here. It would have been a lot of magic damage to went that way. Trades here can be very interesting because Cannon is squishy and Ryze does so much damage. And also has more AoE to control the waves. So Ryze versus Cannon, a matchup we've seen many times, but it's not AP versus AP like it once was. The life's still going to be very important for Kahn to win the war of attrition. But otherwise, Ryze should have a lot of great options in the matchup.
And I want to talk about, options as we move throughout this game, because you've already mentioned the on-hit cannon. I think it's a fantastic choice, even when we're moving into the late stage, because SKT's 4 in the 4-1 is so incredibly consistent when it comes to clearing waves and keeping the enemy team at bay, with the Glacial Augment coming in from FLICKR and Teddy being so maneuverable.
Oh, for sure, but the issue is, how does a cannon get strong enough to be able to match both Yasuo with Exhaust and a Ryze in the side lane, right? It's mixed damage, all-in champions on both sides. Baron buff is very, very powerful against Afreeca Freecs. SKT get a Baron. This game's basically done because Ezreal and Nico roll under a turret in the 4, like you mentioned, and the wave clear Yasuo, Draven, Ryze. Ryze gonna get direct nerfed because of the Baron buff.
Yep.
It's tricky. So at the end of the day, SKT looking to play comfortable once again. They were very happy in the reactive style of game number 1. We're kind of waiting for Afreeca to start lighting fires. They need to be pyromaniacs in this game nice and early.
Yeah, we'll see whether Aiming can cash in those adoration stacks. No blue blades this game, please. They are saying it's Clid is going to spot Dread out. Not going to be able to steal away any of these popcorn chickens. Not going to be Dread sharing his dinner here today. As Teddy gets stood aside there and will take a very long-range axe. And no mana now, looking to probably get a cheeky back and look to teleport back into this lane. Aiming already asserting his dominance in this lane, though, as a couple of these minions should go down. Nope, Teddy is going to cancel the recall.
Got the fast push in to not allow for a cheater recall with teleport in order to get back with mana. So, gonna probably miss some CS as a result from this.
Yeah, store not even open yet, and the Afreeca Freecs already stealing the plates.
Yep. Well, I mean, Skarner's not coming bot side, hasn't shown any visits to the jungle, so it means you're just gonna kind of take what you can get as Ezreal Tom. And guess what? What does Ezreal always win at? It's damage per gold spent. Very cheap to get those 2 items, so you didn't pick Ezreal Kench to dominate lane, so you just take what you can get.
Yep. You picked it to survive the lane, and that is exactly what any lane wants to do up against the Draven. If you're not giving him passive stacks, then you're having a better time, as Ucal throws out the flow. He's going to stab this cannon creep and possibly look for a recall here as well. Decent farm, as he's got the soldier build.
He's already had 1 recall. He's going to get a second recall in before FLICKR even gets a single recall. Biscuit's changed on this patch. You now get a Biscuit at 2 minutes, and it's a little bit less mana, a little bit less health, but the activation at 2 minutes does help you for potential bad early trades, right?
And also meant that I think FLICKR used it more aggressively rather than defensively. You saw he was behind the caster minions.
What do you think's the most aggressive Biscuit, Atlas?
Most aggressive Biscuit?
Like, if someone's getting ready for a fight and needs a bit of, like, energy and they're having a biscuit, what are they eating?
The terrifyingly melted teddy bear biscuits.
Oh.
Some of those are really frightening.
Not tiny teddies, then. Tiny teddies
no, they're always adorable. That's the opposite. That's a
Are they a global thing or an Australian thing?
Tiny teddies? I don't know. Arnott's is an Australian brand, isn't it?
That's true.
So, possibly an Australian thing. We do get this wrong, though. I mean, we were talking about chomps and Milky Ways.
Biscuits are more regional than most things.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like chips or crisps, whatever you call them, potato chips, those are pretty global, but I feel like biscuits especially very regional. I mean, Anzac biscuits, as we know, super super Aussie, but we talk about Monte Carlos, which is not a nickname for Monte Cristo.
Yeah,
that's
not
just a
Monte Cristos.
Type of biscuit.
Clid. See whether he actually decides to go in for a potential steal here. No. Going to. Almost had the opportunity there. Was able to possibly
You could get in, but your cannon's nowhere near. And you look at the enemy team with Yasuo level 7, and that's how you lose the game. So, smartly, going to be on the defensive ebb, and I think this is an advantage that SKT have over Afreeca because of their experience, in that Afreeca never look good in the S drafts, in the scaling drafts. They're not good at scaling because their first instinct is to do what all solo queue dominant players do, it's fight. Yeah. Fight nice and early. So being on the defensive ebb is definitely something that is SKT favor. They choose their moments, they don't choose that one.
Nope, and Ucal didn't choose that moment either, as he got pretty obliterated as Clid predatoring forward, but Kiin's going to get out, no flash required, phase rush, pretty good ability here for the Rise on the top side, and Afreeca going to use this as an opportunity to pick up the Cloud Drake, even more movement speed here for this composition. Effort's going to move up, but he's a little bit too late to stop anything. We'll see whether this cheeky little fake Skarner can get any work done.
Would have been a WTF 2 Skarners moment.
There were 3 Skarners. Did you see the minimap? 3 Skarners. So many Skarners.
That's too many Skarners.
I know. Well, I mean, even more than one is against his law.
That's true.
He'd be like, I miss my kind. There's 6 of you. What are you talking about? Oh, dear. Okay, Afreeca Freecs losing a turret plate in the mid lane. Understandable. But bottom side already, one of those plates going down, another one on the way as Aiming's going to go back, gets himself his Vampiric Scepter, very important item for the Draven who wants to be taking minion harass the whole time because he wants to be standing on the enemy's caster creeps, smacking down his opponents.
All right, I want to request something from Afreeca. I want to see a 10-minute Rift Herald attempt because Aiming has not used teleport the entire game. He's been holding on to it because, of course, he gets the better recalls. He's got Draven.
Yeah.
Draven Thresh is his duo lane, right? And it's Ignite also on the Thresh for kill pressure. So I need to see Afreeca show me that their next stage of development is smart Rift Herald plan. I think going for a 10-minute Rift Herald with how many different fighting tools and summoner spell advantages they have should suit them just fine. We'll wait and see if they're able to follow that logic.
Well, you can see Dread sneaking into this brush, but wards are being pinged out in the river, not in that top brush. It is eventually going to be discovered. Control ward going in there. But you could imagine that Kahn can smell that something's a little bit not right towards the top side. Missing that CS, unfortunately, with the Q. Now Kiin hard shoving. Could be a plate gank as Ucal is going to come over. We're actually looking to go for a dive here. Kiin flashing forward, gets himself the root exhaust. Down onto Kahn, but gets the stun. Max range, ultimate comes in and first blood once again. Over to Afreeca Freecs as Kiin picks it up despite realm warping at the same time. Okay, Hook is just going to straight up miss there, but he still gets the cleanse out of effort. That was a weird little exchange of abilities.
He tried to Captain Jack it, but sadly he was unable to.
Yeah.
Because it never hit.
You probably, he's got the cleanse. He's going to use that button.
And he's young too. He's like 18.
Yeah.
Don't have to proactively cleanse. Now, if that was Joker, of course. But because it's effort, bit of a whoopsies there. A lot of free time for Faker in the mid lane to whack away on, and now picking up 2 turret plates. Don't think he'll get the 3rd. But I love the play from Afreeca because while it wasn't quite Rift Herald, it was during the teleport advantage. So if Draven had joined, that would have been an outnumbered scenario for SKT.
Yep, now Aiming, standing effort aside there. Gets it on the wrong side, though, as this damage is pretty large. And this is why we're talking about... I love that we get to talk about a Vampiric Scepter power spike. Because Draven definitely has one. He just has so much more staying power in this lane. Can play it very differently as soon as that item does come in.
But even though a kill went down, we went back to laning. Teleport is going to come off cooldown. The timing in which you could attack Rift Herald for Afreeca is gone. And in fact, Afreeca are now having to play weak side in the top lane as Kiin goes to follow the leader on his minion wave. Afreeca might be getting one more turret plate out of this, but it's a very incremental lead rather than a dominant one.
Oh, actually a lot of damage. Whirling Death comes in. We do have to devour as Senan's tanking the turret. Gets himself the flay, but Teddy flashes himself out. Afreeca Freecs almost get the 2v2 on the bottom side.
You call it a 2v2. It was a 2v1. If Senan had responded earlier with an Ignite, it would have killed Ezreal.
Yeah.
Through that trade. I think everyone, including us, was surprised as he had a lantern on the ground and he said, no, I'm going in.
I'm going to take your lantern. Just give me a second. Let me kill this Ezreal. Kind of wishes that that land wasn't even there, as Drake gonna face check Clid, but not going to really find too much. Winter's Wrath goes a little wide, but we've got a level advantage here for Dread. A different story at 12 minutes is now teleport coming in from the Draven, exactly like you were talking about, and Afreeca gonna capitalize on the extra power that Aiming has. Bloodthirster in hand.
And this is all Aiming. Aiming is the reason they get this Rift Herald, because they don't use the first time, and they may not even have had it exactly, but they create another 5-minute timer. So that's the reason why it was easy. Senan chasing in.
Yeah, booking it in that mid lane. Didn't actually have his Moby Boot stopped for a very long time, as Teddy's going to even things out when it comes to turret plates. Bottom side, Rift Herald going to be utilized. Top side of the map, and Kiin going to be on his way to a huge lead. Look at all of these plates that Shelly is going to smash down. Here on the top side, Senan tanking a few of these Mystic shots, as at least Teddy does now have some armor under his belt, as well as his magical footwear. Kahn turns up though, and these turret plates aren't all going to be going down. You can see the amount of respect that Kiin has been putting in towards SKT, knowing that he is the target for this squad. It's so hard to attack this Draven lane that if SKT want to find an inroad, it's going to be through the Rise, and he's going to say no. Dread also having that idea, protecting on the top side. Kahn still without Flash. This is an opportunity as Dread, Arctic Assault, and the Flash. Realm Warp going to come in as they're looking for the dive. Arctic Assault goes wide, but they may still just have the damage. The Q is going to land. Dread takes a fair bit of damage. Fade away jump shot on the ultimate is going to secure it. A little bit choppy, but otherwise absolutely fine.
This piggy is the law. The cuffs go on. The prison. Ezreal not going to hit there.
Good guy Kiin thinking that the Ezreal ult was the old one.
But at the end of the day, imprisoned was a good old cannon. Still, SKT on the bottom side going to be able to pick up an answering Cloud Drake. The weak side became the strong side for a moment when Sejuani showed top.
Yep. All right, Ucal is going to complete the Static Shiv. Not necessarily the meta build at the moment on the Yasuo. We've seen a lot more of the Phantom Dance at Infinity Edge. This looks like the Static Shiv Hysterics Gauge for that style of Lifeline. 3-item spike sort of build.
Bit of bridging power, though, given that it's, of course, a scaling build on the top lane. I wonder if Rise would go a super late Rod of Ages. Could still consider that as an option here. If you remember, the last time Rise was meta before the rework, it was dropping the Rod of Ages, but a lot of people have been bringing it back with how squishy Rise is with the removal of all of his passive shields like before.
Yeah, it's like accept the squishiness, build Rod of Ages, and just do a hell of a lot of damage. And we saw what Noguri was able to do, in fact, winning a game by himself in that one.
The QSS is going to be prompted by Scott, so you understand what's happened so far. But there could be a lot of fun ways to bridge. BT Draven, often the strongest person in the early game. Shiv, more of an early to mid-game spike. And then 32-minute Rise build could actually be. From there, wait and see what Afreeca decide. Gold-wise, at the top lane, 2,000 gold lead against a on-hit Kennen, who, as we know, can fall way behind finish items and BK in the 1v1. But if you keep the tempo up, if Kennen's being forced to react to things, then you're right, Atlas. Then he might not have a role. So while Summit came from 0-3 down to turn it around, no guarantees. It's 1v2.
We've seen this one. It can be real dangerous, but Kiin is going to use the QSS and the Flash, gets himself out of there as Ucal says, oh, thanks for the intel, my friend. I'm going to take half the health bar of this outer turret mid lane, and the cannon creep is going to go amiss. I believe FLICKR did manage to pick up at least the experience for that one.
Oh, it's such an awkward timing for Kahn, as FX potentially going to walk up here.
Yep, face checks Dread, who will take a Winter's Wrath. Senan moves on over, but a little bit too late there as Dread not wanting to go too far into enemy territory.
Trying to do a bit of everything, but if you have to face Yasuo, you're not feeling very good about the magic resist quotient here, so Kahn desperately far behind, an emergency half-Z's build between two items. Afreeca gonna mobilize all their power, move it up. So I love the fact that Afreeca addressed their biggest problem in game number 1, where their 2v2 losing lane meant Kiana couldn't do her job, meant a lot of people weren't able to actually use their kits in order to get much. The moment the Draven came in, have a much more straightforward role, and it's Thresh out of lane with one of the strongest dueling 80 carries. So suddenly, everyone on SKT is deathly afraid of being hit by a hook from Senan.
Yep, 437 stacks of adoration here for aiming, as well as we check in on the Draven meter. Couldn't quite build his QSS as he went home. In fact, that back timing feels awful. Only a Null Magic Mantle picked up there from aiming alongside a control ward, but they had just taken down the turret and were looking for a reset as aiming moves into the mid lane and should be able to pretty comfortably defend here. A little bit dangerous for Teddy to be standing up. I feel like you need Flash and Arcane Shift, and then you're almost safe in this lane, just because aiming's so strong. But should be able to at least make that distance count.
A lot of power on the side of Afreeca. The Nico so far being a bit of a passenger this game. Can do a lot of creative things. Faker walks up.
Yeah. But at least they are still going to have priority as far as the push is concerned, and their map control is still there on SKT's side. Of course, SKT looking for more of a 4-1 style. Afreeca suiting the 1-3-1 pretty well if you can put Ucal on a Baron side of the map. And we've got those 2 QSSs done, almost 3 here for Afreeca to make sure that Clid isn't that dangerous, impaling powerhouse that he could otherwise be.
From an Afreeca perspective, what you really need, and this is relevant right now with Infernal spawning in a minute, but just for the rest of the game, is that wherever Yasuo is in the 1-3-1, in this case it's bot lane, it might be top lane when Baron is the objective, you need river control, because then Yasuo can shift down a wave, walk into the river, and you're like, wait, 1600 range on the last breath, is he responding to a mid lane game?
Yeah.
But if you don't have the river control, you don't have that same threat of Yasuo actually being able to group, so... But now at least, with Infernal, it's very straightforward. Put down a line of control wards, control that pit. Kiin.
Yep, Realm Warp is going to be utilized.
He knew his ranges. That was half a Teemo away from looking awkwardly when your Realm Warp is expired.
Yeah, pixel perfect there as Kiin, liking this pirate a little bit more than the previous one. Taking the Pirate Rise after the GP.
I guess Pirate Quinn?
Misfortune.
Quinn is obviously a top laner.
Yep, Malphite.
What if he stayed on brand as Pirates all 3 games? That'd be pretty epic.
Oh God, that'd be sick.
We'll wait and see.
Who's the other one? Graves top?
Quinn.
That was a thing for a while. Yeah, I guess Quinn.
Quinn has the, I don't know what it's called, but it looks like a nose water skin.
Yep.
Here is Ucal smashing down the Inferno that they synergize with very on the nose on 3 of their members, so happy to pick that one up. Waiting to get the confirmation. Will Kiin go something like a Necronomicon? Will he go for that late Rod of Ages? With how strong his side laners are, I actually don't hate the Rod of Ages and a little bit of slowing down. Remember, the gold efficiency on Rod of Ages has never been higher.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean it's OP, but it does mean that when you buy it, you're not sitting there with kind of 400 gold worth of unspent stacks.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually just fine even straight out of the shop, which is not necessarily the way. Normally you need to wear it in, like a pair of nice shoes, you know?
So how do SKT get back into this game? Because they have some tools here, and we mentioned how a Baron for SKT kind of closes the game out in many ways for how strong their sieging is and how much Afreeca will struggle in dealing with that. The problem they've had, though, is now Afreeca has a much easier way to control the map than they did in game number 1. 3 QSSs on Afreeca too, so they're definitely wanting to be very much walking with swagger. This is like having health insurance and then walking up before you start insulting people in an unsolicited way. They're looking for ways to walk up and stop SKT getting map control because they just don't want to be face-checking, specifically a Skarner or a multi-man Nico.
Well, Clid going to turn up and show Afreeca that that is in fact FLICKR is aiming. Going to take a Lantern, but True Shot Barrage comes in.
QSS was used on aiming, so there's someone they could potentially target.
Okay, yeah, in theory. Means that Senan's going to have to be on the ball when it comes to throwing out these Lanterns. This is a Thresh with a lot higher utility in the later stages than we've seen from a lot of Threshes. I know you like to talk about Threshes being more of that early game powerhouse and not having a lot of jobs, but I think Lantern is going to be super huge for getting people out of the way of these Impales as the late game goes on. Because SKT, you were talking about win conditions. I think that pick potential is huge for this squad. If they can get rid of one member of the Afreeca Freecs, then often their game plan will just fall apart.
But if they lose vision control while Kahn is so far behind and getting an item build that can attack anyone in the 1v1, then they really can't do much, right? They push in mid lane, they try to walk up. If they're behind in control wards, and importantly, they have more control wards than the enemy, Afreeca need to find a scenario where they can exhaust SKT's vision when they still have extra control wards in their inventories, because then SKT has no way to play. They can't attack the 1 because Kennen can't win in the 1v1, and if they don't threaten picks, they don't do anything. So that's kind of what's happening here, is a lot about reset back timings that SKT traditionally are a lot better than teams like Afreeca Freecs are doing, that actually can paper over this scenario, because until kind of 3 items is done for Kennen, Kennen loses the 1v1, and they're a pick comp that needs to walk over control wards to pick the enemy. They need to actually be threatening something to get Afreeca to face check, and QSSs are there. So right now SKT doesn't actually control their destiny very much, and theoretically Afreeca Freecs could find a way to pounce.
Well, see whether it is going to be via the Rise lane. He's got an
moly,
Oblivion
that's a lot
on.
of QSSs.
Yeah, okay, the Morellonomicon power spike is in here for Kiin. I actually really would have loved if he had have just kept the Oblivion Orb and built a Void Staff, but I mean, how many times has LS asked and how many times have we been disappointed? As that's not going to happen. He's going to complete the item, gets another cool little book. As, yeah, 4 QSSs might be enough.
That's what? 5,200 gold, which does represent...
Yeah, these tax rates have gone up on Summoner's Rift
but
for Skarner.
You know who's due a tax break, at least in his mind, is aiming on this Draven.
He, yeah, it's getting bluer and bluer, these blades.
Well, he's on the precipice of something, and there isn't any Summoner spell heals, so when it comes to healing, there's actually a laughably low amount of healing on the side of SKT, and the slot efficiency argument isn't as relevant when we're nowhere near as many items, so I'm definitely more on the LS school of thought when it comes to this Finnish Nomnomicon, but if you pick one person, you're feeling really good about it. That's what Afreeca wants, especially if Draven can be the one to cash in.
Yep, the 1v1 side lane sucks even more for Kennen now as well, so I can understand that one. Is okay, Shape Splitter flies forward, hits Senan, almost dead. This is what Ezreal can do in this mid-game.
And now there's someone else who can't walk up to a Skarner. Important to remember the QSS cooldowns.
I love that SKT are keeping on the pressure here as well. This could be outer turret mid being taken down as Predator is popped. Senan once again has to move even further back. Now aiming, wanting to clear out this minion wave, but that's not necessarily what Draven is known for. Cheeky pot shots being taken.
An important interaction to remember is that because FLICKR is known for fishing with his disguise passive, people want to auto-attack him to see if it's the real one. That's where Clid can pounce.
Yeah, Shape Splitter coming in. Okay, Kiin gonna take a lantern, but it's not enough to keep him from going down to 2/3 health.
And 2 QSSs now blown.
Yeah. FLICKR once again playing off to the side. He is such a chameleon. Clid now moving into the brush. Another Clid makes his way out towards the Draven as now Ucal is being impaled. They're looking for him. He's not actually going to throw it out. FLICKR being taken down very low. Whirling Death flies in as there's the Pop Blossom, but he's booped out of the way. The Mountain Drake has been started. Effort gets the Devour and Regurgitate over the wall as Senan flashes just the right time. The AoE from this Rise almost taking down Clid. Trisha Barrage just enough. As Senan is going to survive that one.
It was on 70 health. That was a mistake from Clid. QSS is up on Yasuo. He'll never use it. They're rushing straight at Baron. They might lose it here.
Yep, they are just going to dive right on top. They've got the Earth, Wind, and Fire in the Dragons. 2 of those really, really good at taking down this Purple Worm. It's taken off the board. Ucal might be the sacrificial lamb, but he's going to flash to try and get himself out of the way. SKT want to kill as many of these Barons as they possibly can. Dread, great sidestep, flashes. He's going to get out of the way there as Kiin. He still has his outer turret available, and that's the Lantern Ride that is going to be so important as this game continues to progress.
Really nice call from Afreeca. That's a listen-in we want, as traditionally they haven't been good at those macro calls, but Kiin throws down the Realm Warp. It all falls in. Big punishment on Clid walking up and not respecting the fact that Yasuo was strong enough to wait to see a Skarner ult that he had QSS ready for. They knew the 2 members who had QSS down, but when you prop Predator, there's no ambiguity about who the real one is. And this overforce here...
Wow, it was such an instant QSS as well. I actually missed it in the play-by-play. I apologize, everyone.
Yeah, didn't even need to QSS this time. Did he, though, as he walks up? In this case, the instant QSS, like you mentioned, means there's no threat onto him. They first get positioning onto the Mountain Drake because they didn't force Skarner ultimate onto the other 2 members, and then great call with the Realm Warp to delete Baron.
Yeah, and there was no kill in that Dragon fight or that Baron either. This was all about Afreeca just playing around decent reset timings, understanding they just need to do damage. not necessarily get kills, as Dread has a red buff, but I believe Clid was able to secure that one.
Now someone has to deal with Kiin on the side lane with Baron. Baron so important for Afreeca to break down turrets because of their poor siege. Only ranged champions are Thresh and Rise. They walk up here. They're going to get the mid lane outer. Took a Baron to get it. 27 minutes in. Third turret of the game, and all outer turrets down for Afreeca Freecs.
Yep, now Kahn finds himself in this 1v1 once again. Kiin almost with the Void Staff complete. Once that item's done, I don't think any chance that Kahn does anything against this Rise, who's going to be an item ahead with perfect itemization for taking down this little Pikachu in a side lane. Now, you people here is, okay, we're going aggressive onto the Yasuo, finds himself the last breath onto effort, but 1 versus 4, I have a feeling that SKT should be able to get this one done, and they do. That's just the inting Yasuos that you guys come to expect from all of your solo queue games. Whirling Death will stop a couple, no, just, oh yes, couple of backs. Just the edge of it there onto the Ezreal.
Kench and Kennen, the only ones here. That's really important. Atlas, good call on that one. They're going to get some turret damage in at minimum.
Well, aiming does way too much damage, so I believe this one is going to get taken down. Adoration stack still there. You can see 775 real blue on these blades as Kahn might be the first one. Aiming, looking for it, gets it. Huge cash in for the Draven. Looking to take down the inhibitor here as well, and the Afreeca Freecs. They are such a driving force here in game number 2. Looks like we're going to go to the distance here today.
Not willing to call it yet, but Afreeca are in a great spot, and SKT haven't been able to force like they wanted to. Second inhibitor turret breaks down, and SKT, they just found no rhyme or rhythm in game number 1 compared to game number 1 in game number 2, and Afreeca, with their second round red side draft, have been able to find some ways to really command respect as that first cash in, 1,500 plus gold.
Yeah, those blades were getting real blue, and finally, aiming is going to be A-OK. Goes back, completes the Phantom Dancer, I believe, from just a Zeal that he had before. Oh, and just a cheeky Last Whisper on top of that as well. And getting that % armor reduction is actually really, really strong once we hitting the front line. As we have a look at Ucal getting caught out of position, but this time, it was an Afreeca Freecs ready to respond to their mid laner falling.
Look, he definitely could have played a little bit more respectful on the weak side, but sometimes the ends justify the means. We don't actually see in this replay, but aiming, stopping some backs, and remember, no Baron buff recall from SKT, means the only people here to begin with are Kench and Kennen, and the AD Kennen is not going to provide anything against the Baron buff push, so smart use of resource there from Afreeca. Speaking of resources,
yeah, hook lands onto Clid. He can't do anything. Whirling Death is going to equal the end for the Skarner. Another one comes in. Pop Blossom from FLICKR finds it, but only onto Dread, as now FLICKR's copping damage from Kiin up towards the top side. Oh God, Kahn, nothing he can do. FLICKR obliterated. Realm Warp delivers the Afreeca Freecs into the open arms of the Tahm Kench, who goes golden to represent how much money he's worth as Senan takes him down. Teddy gets a kill off the back end, but 1 versus 4, I have a feeling this means game number 3.
Absolutely, game number 2 is over, and the Draven Yasuo will hold the result here.
Flash forward, stand aside, Teddy. Aiming, looking to win this game, and Afreeca even out the series.
It's gone red side so far in game number 1 and game number 2. SKT will have side selection, and no doubt will pick red side in game number 3. Really nice result here for the side of Afreeca Freecs, and we were thinking 2-0 one way or the other. Our prediction so far is void, and now the only question is, what will the draft for game number 3 go to? As Afreeca were able to use their picks, and you know what? A blue side Draven is very possible in game number 3.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think that there wasn't too much of an answer, but Draven really does a number on Tahm Kench Ezreal. So now that that has been revealed, I think SKT will have it in the back of their minds before deciding to go to that pick by default. And so a lot that they can change.
I didn't hate the Tahm Kench Ezreal. The one that was curious to me was Kennen, because Rise has always had a pretty good matchup into Kennen, or if it is going to be a Kennen lane to end, it's going to be worse than Rise, right? So it definitely felt like they thought they could make the Kennen work, but then Draven's doing his thing, and Kennen struggling a little bit, and it was just too much to bear. So now we have a best of one for all the marbles, and we've already talked about how SKT's Worlds qualification hopes do require a victory here, and more importantly, they want to be champions of Summer. Here are the replays to look over. This time FLICKR not scouted out early, but the gold lead at this point, and specifically some of that Draven itemization. 1 axe, 2 axe, 3 axes question, 3 questions axed, 1 kill picked up.
Yeah, well, make it 2 there as Dread with a 6 sidestep. Teddy was able to get that unfinished business and secure it, but unfortunately doesn't really mean too much. Teddy flashing forward, mostly anger and aggression there, as Afreeca were able to ultimately win this series. 9,000 gold lead in the end, a 30-minute win, much like the way Afreeca wins almost all of their games. This was quintessential Afreeca, getting themselves an early lead, playing it through to the end.
And SKT in the wildcard match don't have a lot of time to pick up on trends on 9-16. It's a best of one. They'll have red side, most likely. They'll see all the picks from Afreeca, but Afreeca can get creative, throw back a Kiana and amp up your duo lane, throw out a new pick that SKT aren't scouting, and if you just win 1 game here, you get your first best of 5. You gatekeep SK Telecom T1 from the rest of players.
Yep, and Afreeca, I mean, if we've had a look through history, they have been able to beat SKT quite a few times over the last couple of years. It often goes the distance. This time, it's the SKT Dream Team. You have to put your faith into what they've been able to do in the past. 2017 making it all the way to the final. Through that gauntlet, they did lose that final, wanting to remedy that. Here this year, game number 3 will be coming up right after a short break, ladies and gentlemen. So don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it to go the distance, Papa, but this time we are getting our money's worth out of the wild card match. Stick around, guys.
노플. 야 이거 니콜공 아니야. 라기공 하면 니콜공 가. 야 에어건 해봐. 에어건 해봐. 에어건 못해. 에어건. 니코. 끝내자. 털어. 아크레 미쳐. 야 이제. 야 캔시 잡았어. 막아줄게 장막으로. 야 끝내자. 오래